A forgotten artifact lies in pieces on a planet far from Earth. Few know it exists except those who took it back and those whose ancestors created it. 4 young people are thrown into a race against emissaries of the gods to find its pieces. Mistrust, greed, and magic are tangled in an endless web. What will the fate be of the universe once it is found and reassembled? Get Scepter of the Gods, The Rod of Truth now on Amazon, and get wrapped up in the saga that will not let you go.
Good morning, and welcome to the Motivational Devotional, where we are merging motivation and spirituality to create a daily dose of confident positivity. I hope that this morning's podcast will help you to be more spiritually and positively motivated so that you can transform your day. This is a special episode in a series of podcasts based on Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. For several years now, I have gone back to the habits taught in this book to prepare for the coming year and home in closer and closer to my lifelong dream and my goals so that I could more effectively achieve my goals. Year after year, we hear people joking about setting New Year's resolutions and then abandoning them by February. Personally, I don't find that very funny. I hope that your resolutions are more important to you than to give them up after only a month or two. What if you were to set 1, 2, maybe 3 at the most resolutions or goals for 2024, and then at the end of 2024, find that you nailed each one of them? You can. I set 2 goals that to me were very large. As I talk about in the Motivational Devotional, I had to change and grow to become more than I was in order to achieve those goals. As I say this now, I have done that. I changed. I grew. I achieved. Starting with the November 27, 2023 podcast and running through the New Year's Eve podcast, this series offers 35 episodes of principles, inspiration, and motivation that I use toward fulfilling my own lifelong dream. I have audacious goals for 2024, but only 3, because more than that will water down your efforts. I will achieve mine by this time next year. You can do the same. And I hope you will pursue yours with relentless intent. If you find these helpful, please go to the Motivational Devotional Facebook page and let me know. For now, let's get on with it. I think that in our public high schools, we should include in some course or another for seniors, goal setting, planning, and project coordination. It's a thing everybody could use, not just if you're going into business to do that kind of thing. People end up planning weddings, family reunions, careers, summer vacations, parties, all kinds of things. And in all this planning, countless things go wrong. But my hope for this kind of thing would be for more people to be aware that we don't have to live by default, accept whatever the world gifts us as leftovers, take what nobody else wants because we didn't act proactively, and lay claim to what the universe intends for us. I used to do annual goal-setting workshops with churches. We would talk about all the things they wanted to do, what they felt God was calling them to do, and how they felt all this would play out over a year, 5 years, and 10 years. The idea was to design a prayer-inspired plan for the future. After we built a list of possible goals, I had them pull out the previous year's budget, which they would do with perplexed faces. After all, I had asked them to make this list without consideration of time or money. So they were wondering why we were referring back to the money. Well, the point was not to see if they could afford their design. It was for a much simpler purpose. In all this discussion, we had talked about their priorities. There were things they felt were extremely important, and they wanted to see those things developed. So, since they said these things were already priorities, they needed to see what their priorities had really been. I asked them to pull out their page with their budget to see what their biggest expenses were over the previous years. Those consisted of salaries, utilities, and property maintenance and improvements. Funny, none of those things were on their list of priorities. Whether you had all the time and money in the world or operated on a strict budget, your priorities should be reflected in what you spent. The same is true for individuals. Your checkbook will tell you what your priorities have been. So let's try it. Either right now, pausing this podcast, or later today, make a list of your priorities in your life. What is the most important to you? Then, And this is easier if you have a way of charting your expenses by categories. Look at where your money went over the past year. Of course, food has gotten a lot more expensive and cars require as much as a mortgage, but find the transactions where you spent money on your priorities. How does that compare with things that are not priorities? So, how about your time? Again, if those priorities are truly important, then one would think those are things that get the lion's share of your time. If we could look back at a written record of how we spent our time over the last 5 years, we could use that with our checkbook to get a clear picture of our priorities. If you spend most of your time and money at the mall, that will tell you something about your values and therefore your priorities. And if that doesn't match with what you wrote down as being your priorities, then you have some reconciling and decision-making to do. Consider whether the ways you spend your time and your money are life-giving to you, whether they feed into realizing your lifelong goals, and whether you are truly getting any long-term benefit from them. I think most people don't consider looking at it that way, but really, shouldn't we? Our two most precious resources are time and money. What difference would it make if you had all the time and money in the world if you already don't use the time and money you do have to help you get what you really want? If you're following along with the motivational devotionals, surely you are working on envisioning, writing down, and relentlessly pursuing what you intend. If you want to design an entire life around your lifelong dream, realize that if you don't have that now, then you will have to make some changes. If you aren't making measurable progress over reasonable time, then you might need to make significant changes. Our past patterns show what we really value, which show what our priorities have been. If those priorities won't accomplish the design you want to see come to fruition, now is the time to make significant changes to bring our priorities in alignment with who we want to be. And here is the secret to this whole thing. When you focus with relentless intent all your resources of time and money toward your lifelong dream and your goals that will get you there, you find you have all the time and money you need to get there. When it is all in sync, we have abundance, which is continually blessed with more because all of creation is conspiring in our favor. Trust that the universe always has your back. Stephen Covey wrote when talking about beginning with the end in mind, the way you spend your time is a result of the way you see your time and the way you really see your priorities.
Thank you for taking the time to listen today. Please help keep this podcast going by following the Motivational Devotional Facebook page, following @Threefold Way Radio on Twitter, and sharing the written format of today's message from motivational-devotional.com on your social media. I am deeply grateful for your support, and thank you for letting Motivational Devotional be part of your journey. Peace out. See you tomorrow.
Motivational Devotional is a production of Threefold Way Radio, LLC.